I was officer in charge of a swift boat in 1967 and 1968. I had the 87 boat, and at that time I was a young JG and made lieutenant just before I left Nam.
I was a first class petty officer, second command of one of these swift boats in Vietnam, 67, 68.
I served from October 1966 to November 1967.
Brown water is the rivers and the canals of Vietnam, they refer to it. It's a little shallower than the deeper water. We started out as a coastal interdiction force in 1965. By late 68, we'd done such a good job interdicting the supplies from the north that they decided to move us further up into the river, which was an exciting time, and that's where the brown water came from, muddy.
Small vessel, swift boat. We're a team, you know, and you had to be a team. It wasn't a question of if you wanted to be. I had a crew of 5. I had a first-class bosun mate, second-class engineman, third-class gunner's mate, third-class radioman, and a seaman. We were what I would call a pretty tight-knit team.
This swift boat was built in 1968 down in Louisiana, specifically for the Navy to use in Vietnam patrolling the coasts. This exact boat here was brought to San Diego to train the swift boat sailors before they went to Vietnam. It was their boat. They'd go out, they'd do 24-hour shifts and get relieved, but when they came back on, they'd always come back to their same vessel. On a larger vessel, most of these sailors would be in uniform all day. On the swift boats, out there in the heat and humidity of Vietnam, these guys would be stripped down to their, jockey shorts, and they'd be getting suntans whenever they weren't working too hard, but it was extremely hot as well. So it was a little more lax as far as regulations, as far as uniforms, but it was a mission for them, and they all were very proud of what they were doing and happy to do it. Very dangerous mission with these vessels. These vessels are built of aluminum, quarter-inch aluminum hull. So if they were hit by anything, the chances of survival were slim. But they were right in the firefights. These guys fought to the bitter end.
It was 95% of the time it was sheer boredom. There were a lot of interesting times interacting with the Vietnamese. Firefights were a little more interesting. They were very brief, so that was probably the 5 or 10% of the terror.
The United States government started training the Vietnamese to run these vessels, so they no longer needed to train the U.S. sailors here in San Diego. At that point, the U.S. donated 2 of these vessels, this one and another like it, to the Republic of Malta. And the Republic of Malta used them for about 45 years patrolling their coasts and their harbors. And in April of 2010, they bought 4 brand new patrol boats, so these vessels became expendable. They kept one for their Maritime Museum in Malta, and they donated this one to the Maritime Museum of San Diego. Now, this vessel, it was a little difficult getting it here. We had to hire a private contractor to bring the vessel from Malta to Norfolk, and then from Norfolk across the country on a low-bed trailer to San Diego. When it arrived back in San Diego, it took us the better part of 2 years to renovate it and restore it. It was totally gutted of all electrics. The engines were rebuilt. It took one electrician 28 straight days, Saturdays and Sundays, to finish this off so we could have it ready for a swift boat reunion that was held right across the street here. We got a special dispensation from the Coast Guard to allow us to take these 600 swift boat sailors out on tours on the bay on this boat. The unique thing about these vessels is the rumbling noise of the engines that you hear. And when we started these engines up, not only emotional for me, for the work that I had put into it, but for all these veterans, it brought tears to their eyes when these engines started up. And it was a tremendous welcome home for these guys, which they didn't get when they came back from Vietnam.
It's one of the things I enjoy. I ride as a narrator, and I enjoy telling people about what we went through, some of the joys, some of the good times, the fact that the original boats had a generator that was too small to run the radios and the coffee pot at the same time. Of course, being the Navy, we turned the radios off till the coffee got made. So those little things that you can tell them the bright side of an otherwise kind of unhappy time.
It's a good feeling to come back on board, to ride the boat. listen to the two Detroit 12V71 diesels kick off. Just great.